Okay, today is July 1st, 2020. You see 7:54 p.m. I wanted to, I've mentioned this in another video, that I want to do some things about, during this pandemic and different things. And one of them was about schools. Now, I did do higher education before, I believe, months ago. I can't remember how long ago. Every day is Groundhog Day. But this one is about school. And now it seems like the last couple of days I've seen more and more on TV about it, and on the news channels, about kids going back to school this coming, I think most of them go back in August, and you see the date today. And and that's a concern. I'm trying to put my own thoughts to, develop more on this topic, so I'll talk about it. Okay, this is how I'm doing my videos still, because of this pandemic. Too noisy inside, and I'm not going anywhere else. So anyway, now as a sociologist, my master's is in sociology, and I taught at college and university. Of course, I see reasons why children should be in school, and there's so many reasons why children should be in school and not online. Now, some people do homeschool. Before this pandemic, they were homeschooling. Right now, I don't know that there would be many kids, since it's July, it's summer, who would be taking classes, but some kids do. Some children do take classes in the summer, and but right now, yeah. And like I was saying, they have to come up with, are the kids going to be going back to school? I live in Texas, north of Dallas, and I haven't seen anything on it. I think they're questioning it, if pre-K through 12 or after programs too, if they'll be back in school. Right now, I think it stands at they will, but I don't know. Like I said, I understand, all the all the developmental issues that come about, and just the socializing and learning how to socialize, and they're mentioning on the news a lot about any kind of problems that kids are having. It's not that easy to do, when they're learning through however they're learning. And there's some kids that can't afford whatever way they have, like a computer, if they need a computer, or they need to have the internet in order to get something that the school provides, and some can't. Some can't. They're having to get lunches sent from school to home for lunch or breakfast, as they were receiving in school. So many different things going on, so much with it, and it's really tough. Parents not being able to work, they need their kids in school, and those that work from home, they they also have to homeschool their kids, and the teachers have it during the day. Now, one of the thoughts I did have was, what about them? Let me think about it. For those where it would not be a good idea for them to go back to school. I mean, in some places it would not be a good idea to go back to school for kids. We have to be realistic, not hopeful, that things will change and it won't be bad for kids. We all know that some kids do get it, and people will throw out whatever they want to kind of, some people will, some to meet whatever they want it to be. But we all know that kids get it, and sometimes they get very sick with, what is it called? It's similar to something else. I can't remember, but look it up. I mean, don't go looking for, there's nothing wrong with kids. I think a lot of people will. But anyway, there are all kinds of problems, and they can spread it. Some people say, they can't spread it, but yeah, they can. Last I heard from the experts, from the actual voices of authority, yes, they can. And the teachers can get it. And what kind of trauma would a child, any of those grades, go through if their actual teacher got it and died from it? And we can't say that this couldn't happen. Okay? I mean, just go down that line with it. There's so much that can be said about that. So it's one of those things where it's very difficult to balance, you know. I mean, I know that a lot of kids were already being homeschooled, and what issues did they have? How did they work those out? And it's just a lot. No, I don't think anybody can have one good answer for everybody. Might be a good idea to have something in place. I think it would be that kind of thing. But you know, when I first started talking about this months ago, I was talking about how many changes are going to have to come about, and a lot of changes will need to come about still. And are people thinking about them? Now, one of the things I was thinking about was, you know, why are they utilizing like TV channels? Okay, you know, for the children who you know, can't afford it, you know, like local access or something. I don't know how they could do that. I certainly wouldn't know how much it would cost. What was would benefit? Who would it? How many would it? You know, whether they'd have to have cable TV. How expensive is that? What tier do they have to have? You know, whatever is the case. And how would they work with so many teachers? I would think they'd change on and off. You know, like kids from pre-K to, you know, depending on what your school district is like, whatever it's in elementary school. You know, they often have a homeroom teacher, and then they go to other classes, at least around here, I know of. They go to other classes for different, you know, like social studies, and then math in another one. And to have teachers like that switch off, and there's you know, however many is at work, they've worked it out to where, you know, maybe one this day, one the next, like that. But the teachers do a lot more than just teaching. They have a lot more work, and then they maybe could focus on the kids that seem to have more problems, issues, and work together on this. And there's so much that could go just in that, with the kids being from home. You know, during the pandemic, there might be another pandemic, you know, they're talking about, and during the flu season, combined, all this. Still, there's, like I said, there's so many other issues. The parents, how can they do it when they have to go, you know, when they have to work, and so on. But I thought about that, and I also thought about, like, YouTube channels. You know, they watch and that way kids can, or parents can, you know, like on a TV channel or something like that, or cable if it had to be. And yeah, and it would need to be cost effective and all that, but they could replay that day, replay it at night or evening and then night, and that way the parents can make their own schedule, you know, when that class the kid would learn. I mean, there's so much, seriously. I'm going to keep saying that. But the same thing with like YouTube videos. You know, they don't have to pay for that. They make YouTube videos, and then some would say, well, then these ISDs, they would say, well, we don't need to have all these teachers, and we don't need to, you know, the teachers to come back because we have all these YouTube videos. I don't think that would become a case. Of course, you know, it could, but I don't think that it would, because I don't think the parents would like that. I think the parents would argue it. They want their kids back in school as soon as possible. But it might not be possible for this coming up school year. It just might not be possible. Okay? Seriously. You know, there are lives at stake. There are lives at stake. Plain and simple, there are lives at stake. Okay, you know, as we all know, there is nothing normal about what's the whole world's going through right now. It's a pandemic. There's nothing normal. Then there's no place where everything, I cannot imagine there being a place where everything is normal. You know, the prior norm, we'll never have that norm again. That will never be our norm. And we hopefully, the majority has learned learned some lessons, that don't expect life just to be, the same today, this minute, as it will be next minute. Okay, I mean, that came like just all of a sudden, boom, there it was. And like I said, now they're talking about, as of yesterday, when Dr. Fauci was before the Senate committee, I believe, and he talked about this swine flu. I think they call it G4, was it? I could be wrong on that. I already put up a video. I think I made it public. Hardly anybody watched it. When you change genres, expect that. But, and if I put this on that channel, that is. But really, we're not going to have that norm again. And they need to start working on the norm that's going to be. People who are thinking that it's going to go back to that, they need to give it up. This is not going to ever go back. It just won't go back to that normal. And just, people sticking their heads in the sand or just ignoring it, wishful thinking. We can at some point just go back to that way. No. I mean, seriously, learn. And people who are, the ones I'm so sick of hearing, I'm so tired of hearing, it's all a hoax, it's all the Democrats. And they give a lot of power. They apparently think the Democrats have a lot of power to cause worldwide pandemic. Yeah, ridiculous. Just downright ridiculous. There is something that happens to people like these conspiracy theories. I didn't bring my notes out. I think it's called illusory perception. I can't remember. But yeah, it's a problem with the way they see things. They see connections, like when you connect the dots. I've said that plenty of times in my videos. Some people just can't connect the dots. But these, they believe they're connecting the dots. They actually believe they're connecting the dots when they're not. Yeah, when it's just not true. And anyway, I mean, some of these things you really need to have started thinking about these when it first started. Putting stuff off, hoping for a return of the norm, the former norm. It's just not going to happen. And anything like it is not going to be able to happen so soon. Okay? Maybe once there's a some kind of, immunization or something, which they say that anything like that can take up, can never happen actually. It can never be figured out. But some say that it's an average of 10 years. Okay? And, I mean, things are going to have to change. These things, like I keep saying, these things need to be thought out and find solution. Various places, and not everybody's going to really have one solution to it, because you do have kids who live in wealthier areas, or their school districts. They don't have to live in a wealthy area to go, and they don't always go to a wealthy school district either. Well, it usually is, but it can be also not be. That's like here it can happen. And that's just not fair as it is. But there are districts where they just don't have the funding. And some that's going to be different than the ones that do have the funding. Okay, for whatever they need to figure out what they can and can't do. And these, this is a time when greed, like corporate greed or whatever, they're going to have to give up on some things. They really are. They're going to have to let go for the goodness of the many. These kids, okay, these kids that these minors, and that who are they going to be? And this is another generation. These are generations. These are coming up, and those coming after them. I don't know what the age group right now. Some call them iGen and some call them Gen Z. And I don't know what the age range is right now. I think I could be wrong. I better not say. But this is the future of our world. Okay, and not giving them proper education. What is it going to be? And this affects everybody. If you have a lot, well, we already kind of know that. You have a lot of people who lack being taught simple things like logic. Okay, can have terrible results for a whole country, whole world even. So, okay, and also this kind of thing has to stop being so political, really. I mean, I know many of us have heard over and over again why it should not be made political, but we know for some it has become political. Everything from wearing masks to shaking hands even, remember that? And so much. And this whole thing of blaming it all on the Democrats, and it's Democrats are just, it's a hoax, it's a hype, they caused it somehow because they want to win this election. These kinds of thoughts, people shouldn't. The people who think honestly, I feel this way. The people who don't think that way, they need to speak up if they can without being in any danger. Because sometimes the people who have those loudest mouths, they don't want you to have freedom of speech. It's only for them. It's only reserved for them, is their mentality. But this involves kids. Okay, we're getting down to this. This is involving children. Okay. For when these children, these minors, they not all of them are minors. When they get into some of them are 18 and up. They are adults, and but let's just say these minors, they need to have their parents really teach them things about hygiene. Okay, proper hygiene for this, this kind of pandemic, any kind of pandemic, the flu, all of these things, they need to be taught, and a lot of that starts at home. It should. And they need parents that they can see what their parents are doing, and they can model themselves after their good parents. And they're teaching them this, wearing masks when you go to school. There are exceptions. Some people can't, for whatever reason. It's not usually financial. It's usually health-wise. An actual professional doctor said no. Not just that they don't want to, but the doctor said no. And children, grandchildren, to see that this is how you do these things. And you think about not touching people, not getting so close to people, to other children, adults, anybody really. How schools spread around lice. I've heard for years that kids, I've worked with a lot of children, every grade, that they're the super spreaders, and like flus and during flu season. Okay, it needs to start young on being, to save lives, to save their own selves from getting these terrible flus. I'm surprised. I've survived childhood. I had no guidance, really, and because it's not just this coronavirus is not a flu, but when you when the kids go back to school, that's when the flu season, right around that time is when the flu season starts. Flu is all year long, but the flu season starts. And with the coronavirus, and if this possibility, it's only a possibility, the swine flu, all this combined, and kids are going to go where they're going to go get so close to one another and breathe on one another without masks. No, that is not acceptable. Okay, that's harming them. It's harming your own child by not teaching them, in my view. Yeah, proper hygiene, proper etiquette on something during this season. Now, we all know that some children are still going to do it no matter how they're trained, no matter how they're taught, how it's modeled for them. We all know that. We do. You know, some children are stubborn. Some children just don't get it. Will just not get it. We all know this. But if most do, and yes, they have gone back and forth on this whole thing with wearing a mask, but please go and read cdc.gov and just search face coverings. Okay, and educate yourself some. I can't tell anybody what to do, but that's what I would tell anybody I know personally. You know, especially if I knew somebody personally who was saying it's all a hoax and all a hype and all of that. But those are not the people who would be looking there in the first place. Pretty much not. Oh, I don't know. It just exhausts me to think that, you know, during all this, a lot of people just really didn't care about the children and the elderly. And it was all about them, all about what they wanted. So hedonistic, so psychopathic. When somebody does not care about the lives of other people, that's the way I see it. You know, psychopathic. Psychopaths don't care. Generally, they don't care about other people's lives. So, and as we all know, you know, none of us are perfect beings. None of us. And we're going to make mistakes as adults, too. And hopefully we learn from them. That's the important thing, is to learn from them. Well, you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But the people who stubbornly believe even if they do something wrong and they're caught doing it, they have no shame, experience no shame. And when they did it, if they weren't caught with it, they felt absolutely no guilt. Those are the people to worry about. And their shame has gotten don't shame me. It's gotten such a bad rep, you know, it has a bad connotation, but it needs to be rethought and not just make blanket statements about it. But the people who they don't think that anything that they've ever done was wrong. These are the people we need to worry about. Seriously, what they're going to cause. It needs to be less acceptable. And like I said, you know, in my view, not everybody can do this, and none of this is one size fits all. But the people who are decent people, I'm gonna always call them decent people, good, decent people, who have good intentions, who think about others, who worry about others, who concern their lives, who feel empathy and express compassion, do whatever it means once they feel it that needs to be done. These are the people who need to start speaking up. Being silent isn't helping. And I'm well aware of the bullies, how intimidating they are. I'm well aware of it. So that's why I say, you got to gouge for yourself that it can be dangerous. They can be very dangerous. We all know that. Believe me, I've known that since I was really young. Yeah, so many voices are silenced. The stories I heard when I was young about how some people's voices were silenced, and these were white people, and not like like they deserve more. I'm saying back in those days, white voices usually weren't silenced as much as other ethnic groups. They were silenced, and too much. What I saw back then, and so nobody's voice should be silenced. That's what I'm trying to say. And but then just groups, and they still do it to this day. I still see it. They just want to silence everybody but their own. Okay, they scream, they yell, they whatever. I call them rather histrionic, some of them. I need to wrap this up. The doggies wanted to go for a walk, and Adam brought them out, so they're going to be noisy. But, okay.